So I came out today to shake things up a little bit because I know that there's a huge trend lately in trying to instill recurring revenue into practices. And what's happening is we're reverting to membership models, subscriptions, and things like that to try to infuse recurring revenue into our practices. The issue with this, however, is when not done well or not done with this in mind, you're putting yourself at risk for a very distorted view of your sales, of your numbers, and not really making sound business decisions based on good data. Welcome to Keep What You Earn, the show for business owners who want to scale profitably and build a business that's actually worth something. My name's Shannon Weinstein, and I run a fractional CFO firm to help seven-figure aesthetics and wellness practices scale with clarity, cash flow, and confidence without burning out or guessing their way into growth. Each week, you'll hear practical CFO insights, real stories about scaling and exiting, and clear financial strategies designed to help you understand what's holding your business back and how to fix it. If you want to follow along with the exact framework that we use with our clients, sign up for the free 5-part video series for aesthetics practice owners, where I walk you through the financial building blocks required to scale your practice and increase enterprise value. You'll find the link in the show notes. All right, so today I wanted to shake things up a little bit and challenge a school of thought that's really become popular in the last couple of years, which is infusing recurring revenue models into med spas and into similar practices by using memberships, and also really leaning into the gift cards and the prepaid services, thinking, oh, this is actually a cash flow acceleration. This is great. This accomplishes all the things that Shannon talks about, which is collect money faster, pay money out slower. Yeah, because I'm collecting all the money up front and then I'll pay the cost later. This is a perfect example of that. Yes and no. So I'm actually going to break down for you why membership models, prepaid packages, gift cards, things like that could actually be doing more harm than good. And if done well, they can be great. But the most important thing to keep in mind is how you use them and how you consume the data around them. We'll use gift cards as an example. You love gift cards because you get all the money up front. You have record sales months, possibly in December due to gift purchases. You've got this influx of cash, which is wonderful, but it can be a false sense of validation and momentum. It feels like winning. It feels like conversion, marketing's working, yay. The problem with that is that your marketing may not be working, but you have this false sense of it because these gift card sales are boosting you. So there's a couple things that you need to be doing if you are offering these. Number one is you have got to be segmenting in your books. You need to be able to know income from services, income from retail, income from gift cards, income from prepaid bundles or any prepaid services, and income from memberships. You need to be tracking all of that. You need to be tracking all those different income centers in your business so that you know what they're generating. Because here's the kicker. You're going to have a very distorted view of your margins. So if you recall, our financial framework goes through one of the first things we look at is offer profit. If your treatments are profitable, you're going to have this revenue come in. And overall, across your whole business, you're going to have higher revenue, but the costs associated with delivering those services that the gift cards were purchased for or the memberships were purchased for, if you're collecting the money up front, the costs haven't been incurred yet. So you haven't paid the providers to deliver the services yet. You haven't paid for the consumables that are going to go out the door. Okay. So the costs haven't come in yet. And that sounds like a good thing, but you're going to think you're more profitable than you actually are because you're going to have all this extra money, but you're not going to see the costs that are associated with it. And then there's going to be a rude awakening when people come in and cash in those gift cards, when people come in and use those packages, and you're going to be like, oh, I have to go pay all these people their paychecks, but I have no income coming in this week because they all prepaid it back in December. So I understand why we love it, because it's the kind of like sense of, ooh, we sold a bunch of money and I have more cash in the bank. Yay. But it's very short-lived and very temporary. And if you don't have the right habits with money management, with cash flow management, this can be detrimental because this can give you a false sense. I'll give you an example that you may relate to here. Think about GLP-1s. Okay. GLP-1s can, if you don't have good habits to go strength train, you don't have good habits to exercise, flexibility, mobility, whatever, and you don't have good eating habits going into a GLP-1 treatment or plan, this could be detrimental because you could be on the GLP-1 and then you could end up with a false sense that what you're doing is working when really it's the injection really doing a lot of the work. You experience weight loss results, but then once you're off the medication, you're back to all the old bad habits and then you have adverse results. Very similarly in your business, you can inject cash, gives you a false sense of results generated, like you did that, right? You accomplished that through your habits or your doing, when in reality, it was an external force that really boosted you. What you have to keep in mind is to keep those habits solid so that you can sustain the results of that and they can last. And this goes with your dollars too. Every dollar that comes into your business that is for a membership, that is for a prepaid or gift card, that is a future obligation. That is a future amount you owe in services. It's services owed. It's going to distort your perception if you inflate your top line revenue expectations. Now you have a false sense of demand and pricing if you're really grouping this all together. You also have to keep in mind location performance, because maybe you think a location is actually outperforming another in total sales, when in reality, it's because they sell a ton of gift cards. You really want to make sure you're celebrating capacity usage more than you're celebrating cash in the bank. Capacity usage is going to tell you what you're actually generating, like how productive your staff is, how productive your rooms are. Your cash balance won't necessarily tell you that, because you're going to get a false sense of that injection. You may not actually have the capacity to take on all of the sales that you're pre-selling. So think of it this way too. And this is where you have to get really tight around terms, expirations, things like that, which I'll cover next. When you have gift cards, you have gift certificates, you have all these things that inject cash but delay delivery. What you're going to have to keep in mind is that you have a promise to fulfill on this later. And if for some reason you can't fulfill on this and there's an issue, they may ask for a refund. There are plenty of people who may never come in and use it, which is great, which is also why you should have expirations, so that you know that they'll never use it because it'll expire. But you have to, you risk having to fulfill on this. So I'll give you an example. Let's say you have a gift card for a certain amount of Botox treatments, right? And somebody gets it as a gift and then they come in to use it 3 months later, but your injector quit, or you've stopped offering that service, or something happened and now you can't offer that service. Well, guess what? Now you owe them an equivalent value of service or whatever your policy is, or you may have to give them a refund. Now, this is where I would tell you, you have to look at your state laws around gift cards and gift certificates and store credit, because you could be locked into a law that says that these cannot expire. So you have to be really careful about that obligation that you have. You're promising future staff time, you're promising future resources that you may not have. And this is where you're kind of borrowing from your future business to deliver. So you're borrowing from your future business to inject cash today. And you have to look at it kind of like a loan, like a liability. You have to look at it like a loan you have to pay back in the form of paying that labor cost, paying those consumables. And this is where cash flow really comes in, because cash flow management is where you can start to really see how this is affecting you. So cash looks healthy because on the scale, right? You see what the number you want on the scale in your business, but inside you realize that, like, yeah, but that's just a delayed cost that's going to hit me. If you have a good cash flow forecasting process, what you can do is map out the expected usage of these things over the course of their expiration based on historical data. Data is king. You have to know the data of, well, when I sell these, about how many get redeemed and within what period of time. Track this, because now you'll know, hey, I think 80% of these are going to get redeemed, and most of them come in within the first 8 weeks. Okay, great. Now we can actually build that into our capacity plan. We can build that into our cash flow forecast, and we can understand it. The other thing too is like seasonal exposure. So hear me out. Let's just say the summer slump. You're thinking, oh, I'm going to sell these gift cards and they'll be great because people will come in during the summer when people don't normally come in, and they'll use these gift cards. Probably not. If they're already not coming in, they're not going to be that much more, motivated to come in just because it's summer or because it's slow. So just remember that you're going to continue pushing the capacity constraint you already have by having people come in during busier times. This is where, again, you have to look at the terms, you have to look at how it works, you have to look at what you're incentivizing when you're offering these sort of prepayments or these memberships, because you have to remember that you have an obligation to fulfill on these services. This also creates less predictability, by the way. So in our last episode, I covered the need for you to build a sellable practice built around reliability and predictability and reducing risk for your buyer. Well, in doing so, you have to be able to predict through scheduling and through buyer behavior when they're coming in, what to expect on a given week, month, of the year in terms of revenue, in terms of staffing and scheduling. This is really freaking hard when you have a lot of gift cards outstanding because you don't know when they're going to come in, or you don't know when they're going to start booking, and it might be more sporadic. Not to mention, you may not have more recurring revenue through that. You might be getting people coming in for, say, facials one time because they got a gift card, but they're not a regular customer. So these one-time customers, because of gifts, are going to then invade your normal schedule and then maybe even impair the experience and the scheduling process of the people who are your regulars. So just be careful about that. What you should be doing is really looking at earned revenue, and you should be looking at your capacity metrics. So instead of just looking at cash in the bank, you got to be looking at, how is your revenue per square foot of space? How is your utilization of your staff? Because if you look at capacity instead of cash, if you look at how is my space being utilized and how are our providers' time being utilized, that is going to tell you more about what you're actually generating and how busy you actually are than this false sense of security through these cash injections. It's so, so, so important. Now, if your business is depending on selling future work to feel successful now, you're really floating, not growing. And you need to understand the trade-off to not let cash flow timing dictate your strategy. So here's what I would recommend that you do. If you offer these types of packages, there are a couple things. You need to be tracking more the capacity metrics than the cash. You have to understand that this is a temporary cash injection, and this is not to be treated as part of your measurement of sales goals. I would also encourage you to not pay commissions on gift card sales, especially not at the point at which they're sold, because that's another thing that it's another cost, right? So I would rather it be paid or something be paid, or, I would rather be incentivizing full package sales, to be honest with you. If you're incentivizing membership sales, I understand that if it's recurring revenue, but you have to be looking at, what is this going to cost me in the long term, and the cash flow timing of it all, to make sure that you're actually clear on what sales are the sales that you want. Think of a practice that does this. Think of a practice that literally encourages everyone to buy gift cards for future sales as a gift, right? So they have a stellar month. Maybe they double their revenue in the month of December for Christmas. Well, you're not going to have a permanency to that. You're not going to want to then up all your sales goals. You're not going to want to order more consumables. You're not going to want to hire more people, but your numbers will be kind of telling you, hey, you got all this money now. You can hire more people. You can go expand. You can go explore new second location spaces. Like, again, don't overinterpret it, is my point. Don't overinterpret this metric. The other big thing to keep in mind is understanding your cash flow, that if you don't have a good cash flow forecast, I would strongly recommend not playing with the time clock here and saying, oh, okay, I'll sell future work and I'll just make it work later. And you're really rolling the dice here if you don't have a good cash flow forecasting process in place. Now, how do you do a cash flow forecast? I'll cover that in another episode for sure. But you have to make sure that you're monitoring that cash flow and that you're not interpreting these things to be permanent. That is the biggest thing you can take away from today's episode. We'll cover cash flow forecasting in another episode, but if you do want to get a little bit of insight into what we mean by cash flow forecasting, don't forget to check out our video series. Cash flow is, I believe, step 3 in that series to look at your financial vital signs. I would encourage you to take a look at that if you want to go a little bit deeper. Hey, thanks for tuning into today's episode. If it left you feeling inspired to take action, make sure to check out our free video series that walks you through the same framework that we use as a CFO team to identify what's holding a practice back from growth and how to fix it. Links in the show notes. See you on the next episode.